All right, we are halfway through Make by Pieter levels. First, we learned how to create an idea. Then we learned how to build our app. Then we launched the app. And now it is time for us to learn how to grow. Did this room get smaller? All right, so let's get into it. So, Pieter Levels has one very clear message right at the beginning of the chapter. Organic growth is better than paid traffic. It always is. And his point is that if your app is only successful while it's getting paid traffic, then is it really successful? Because once the paid traffic stops, like your funds run out or something, that just kills your app. So what's the point? Like he says at the end of the chapter, the best hack to get people to come back and grow your product is to just make a really useful product. Almost seems a little too simple. So this chapter is basically a list of a few different strategies that you can use to drive organic growth to your app. Number one is something he talked about at the end of the previous chapter, and that is that you should always be launching. Launch with new features and new versions of your app. The second strategy he brings up is spin-offs. This isn't something I expected or thought about. He basically says that sometimes new features actually work as separate businesses in and of themselves. They can actually increase your brand's reach, and so sometimes if a new feature is really useful, it makes sense to spin it off as something separate. And he actually says that spin-offs are actually just another form of launching, which we just talked about. The third strategy is you should tell your story to the press. People want to know the story of why you built your app. They want to know the struggle that you had, what you learned, and they want to know all about your journey. So sharing your story to as many people as possible is a great strategy. Personally, I didn't really think this was different from launching. It just seemed like part of launching. Like, of course, you should tell your story. And he talks about like every time you launch a feature, you should be telling your story. And so I didn't really see them as separate, but it's something he listed separately. So I'm mentioning it here. The fourth strategy he mentions is something that I think is really cool. Building in public. More and more developers are sharing their journeys as they build their apps. Personally, I was really enthralled watching Pants make Punch-a-Bunch in his devlogs. You can see their thought process. You can actually see them learning with each video that they put out, at least in the case of Punch Bunch, and it makes you feel like you're part of the journey. Strategy number 5 is you need to make it easy for users to share your app. This is a bit technical, but the way he recommends doing this is to set up your meta tags. Websites like Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter, they use these meta tags that actually control what the little box looks like when somebody shares your app on their site. So you can use those tags to cause their site to display a certain image or a certain text, and that can make the app more shareable. And I think if you're trying to grow your audience, that's probably one of the easiest strategies. If you can just make one image, he actually talks about dynamically generating those tags, which could be really interesting. So yeah, you should absolutely use those meta tags so that those website crawlers from Facebook and X will make your app a little more shareable. Next, he talks about human readable URLs, which makes a lot of sense. Basically, if someone searches something on your app or your website and then they share it with a friend, they want that friend to see those filters. They don't want the friend to have to redo all the filters that they had. Embedding the actual search terms in the URL and making it really easy to understand what's going on is actually kind of a big deal. One of the strategies he recommends is making an API. The cool thing about making an API is that you're organically increasing brand awareness because users who are going to other sites will see your data on those sites if the terms are set up correctly, and that can increase brand awareness broadly. Pieter does mention that there are risks with this strategy. Pieter tells the story of when he first created the API for Nomad List. Within a few months, there were already 6 clones using the exact same data with absolutely no attribution to his app. So if you're going to build an API, you need to be very cautious about how that data gets shared. Chapter 5 was an interesting one, short and sweet. I'll see you tomorrow for Chapter 6, Monetize.